coming to you live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I think our temperature has ranged this week anywhere between about 85 and maybe around 40. So quite a variance there. My experience, I got about 20 years in the CPG and shopper and digital space. My current role, I run the sales group for the Midwest and the West Coast for Valassis. This is my first time with Brand Innovators, so thank you guys very much for having me. And I've worked with Kellogg's on many fronts over the years from a professional perspective, and I also have some personal brand experience with some of the Kellogg's brands over the years. So I will start off with a quick little couple tidbits with regards to that. So as a kid, I still have distinct memories of a couple things. Number one being Eggo waffles being like my number one thing to look forward to from a snack perspective as a kid, and I do distinctly remember. There was a no sugar cereal rule in the house for when I was a youngster, but my mom's favorite cereal was Frosted Flakes. So there's always like one box of cereal that was Frosted Flakes in our cupboard that was like only for my mom. Until I became a certain age. I can't remember honestly what age that was, pathetically. But I hope she's not watching. What I used to do to make my own sugar cereal is to combine the chocolate, either powder or sauce we had in the house, with actual Rice Krispies. And voila, what do you know? You have chocolate Cocoa Krispies.
You have Cocoa Krispies.
She wouldn't even know. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of found my way around the mountain at a very early age. And
Are you looking for a job in R&D?
I'm open to anything, I feel like. So that was one of my first like childhood memories of like personally invoking Kellogg's products that came to mind immediately. So I wanted to share that fun little tidbit. And with that,
I love it.
I will pass the mic to you, Brittney, for a quick little background intro for you.
Yeah, so and again, thank you for having me today. I always love interacting with the Brand Innovators community, and Casey, I know it's your first time, but welcome to the community. It's great. So I joined Kellogg's in July of 2019, so almost 2 years coming up here this summer. And my role specifically is the director of our global shopper marketing strategy for Kellogg. So it's a global capacity role across North America, LATAM, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And the role spans as building our global shopper marketing capability. And I know we'll talk more about that today. And then I also oversee our shopper strategy for our global brands, which are Special K, Pringles, and Cheez-It. So you have to think through different regions have different brands. There's brands in Europe that I'd love to get my hands on, but I can't get them here. But Pringles, what will be Cheez-It here shortly, and Special K have great global penetration.
I love it. I love that you have like such a large role with regards to like such a large portfolio, such a large territory that you kind of can see what's working in some areas and what's not working in some areas, and apply your learnings and apply like your wants and your demands for.
That's the best.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, like even this morning, or late last night, I was emailing with the teams in Singapore, and they shared something that I thought the team in London would love. So just being able to like connect best practices and good work across the globe has been one of my favorite things about the role.
I love it. I love it. In my world, I only get to connect like people in Chicago to Minneapolis to Los Angeles. So yours is like a whole another level of connectivity, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later here too. But that's awesome. So that being said, I mean, I know we've had kind of a 2020 year of not too much travel, not too much that stuff going on. But when in the normal course of your role, are you bouncing around from country to country? Are you a little bit more stationary, or how are you kind of handling some of that stuff?
Yeah, there was a lot of travel prior to COVID, and it was actually a nice benefit to see the world and to be immersed into different cultures. And I always say to anyone in marketing, if you can have a stint or a run a show per se in a global capacity, you should absolutely do it, because what it opens your experience up to is just understanding different different market complexities and different consumers and shoppers in different markets, and how taste transfers to different markets. um, but as far as travel, that is something that's greatly missed. I doubt we'll be doing any global travel this year,
Hmm.
probably domestic. We'll see about next year, but um, hopefully get over to all of our regions next year, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on hopefully. I think a lot of things are hopefully these days. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned the shopper, and I think that's kind of one of the cool parts about what you mentioned as far as your role. So let's maybe talk a little bit more just in general about like the shopper capability and the consumer. And this is the consumer engagement session, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about the Kellogg shopper capability and how you approach that in your role.
Yeah, so you know what's important is that, and what I believe is a massive miss within all CPG organizations, is that we do not equal out the importance of marketing to our shoppers as we do marketing to our consumers. Driving business as a whole, right? You definitely need to drive brand love, but you also need to drive share of wallet. You can't do one without the other, right?
Sure.
And so I I've had roles across brand, across shopper, across commercial. So I've done them all. And what I've been able to see is that shopper marketing is wildly misunderstood in the organization, and in not just Kellogg, and many CPG organizations. And because of that, because it's wildly misunderstood, it is often deprioritized in regards to seats at the table, in regards to funding, in regards to headcount resources, as well as commercial excellence and communication flow. So as I came into the role, I took a great deal of time just taking inventory and assessment of where we are globally across several key pillars within the shopper data set, right? So from shopper strategy to shopper insights to perfect store to shopper execution and activation, agency models, internal org structures, just seeing the differences that we had across the globe, what worked, what didn't. And that really allowed me to be able to craft for Kellogg's our case for change and how we're going to market to our shoppers moving forward. And it's, the art of that is called building capability, right? Because as I have my colleagues, Lauren Newman spoke earlier, she is driving the cereal business in North America of today. She's driving what's on shelf today.
Hmm.
I'm focused on 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, knowing that the market is moving way, way more fast than any company is able to keep up. And so if you don't have a group within your organizations that's focused on building the muscle of the team and of our capabilities, and that goes across e-commerce, sales, media, creative, innovation, you've got to build the future of what that's going to look like. So that is what I'm doing at Kellogg, and having a lot of those global inputs to the work has been very helpful to be able to establish our roadmap at Kellogg's and what we need to do moving forward across those key pillars, like I said: insight, strategy, perfect store, activation, agency model, and org structure. And so what I'm building is the Kellogg way of shopper marketing. And it's very exciting. It's not been easy, but it's very exciting. And what's been even more exciting to see is that it's starting to take shape, and regions are utilizing the principles and they're utilizing the work. And we're starting to see really great traction
Love it.
in how we market to shoppers.
Cool. I think what I like the most, and I when you had said that, like, I think it sounds like you can kind of take the reins and you're kind of building something and changing something from scratch, and with your role and with your purview from a 30,000-foot view, you get to see, like, from a resource perspective, allocation of resources, people, headcount, strategies, insights, having sitting where you sit. That sounds like a really cool and exciting. And I know I'm kind of loving the R&D side of things with Kellogg's already. Now I'm kind of getting into the international realm. So you and I might have to chat after this about.
You might have to shoot me your resume.
I know, exactly. Hopefully my boss isn't watching. I'm already probably.
It's a great company to work for.
Yeah, it just sounds like really cool to be able to build something, not necessarily from scratch, but being able to come in and be a change agent within, like, such a important vertical from consumer and shopper perspective. So for me, it just sounds like a really cool way for you to kind of take your learning and enact some change. I think to me, that sounds like a very attractive place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it is from scratch. But that's what's been the exciting thing, is building what's going to make sense for us given, market maturity levels and complexities. But it is an exercise of, you hear the phrase, building the plane while we're flying it, or flying the plane while we're building it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much that. So it's a balance of trying to move some things forward while we're still building the infrastructure. So
Yep, makes sense.
Well, yeah, and then that's predominantly probably 60% of my role, and then 40% is, like I said, shopper strategy for our global brands.
Cool. Well, I can't build a plane or fly a plane, so I think I'm not going to apply for that job.
Okay.
We'll give that to somebody else. All right. So moving on to your job sounds like international scope, larger role. So I assume kind of what we just had chatted about, you get to see, like, the bigger picture. And I will say, like, putting yourself in my shoes and vice versa, like, my role day to day is, I feel kind of like toggles between sometimes getting in the granular details of the day to day. Sometimes that's of a necessity. I don't necessarily want to be in there, but you need to do that to learn the small things and apply them to bigger picture conversations across, whether it's within one client or one campaign, or a bigger picture strategy for the company for the year. But would you say, given, I think what I like about, like, the sound of your role is you are able to kind of see a lot, but do you ever kind of miss the granular day-to-day details in what you do these days?
There's certainly pros and cons to both types of roles.
Mm-hmm.
I because I've had roles that are delivering the business of today, I've certainly experienced that. Probably will rotate back there again one day. But I think I'm good right now. I mean, to be provided this opportunity and to have built the trust that I've been able to build within our global regions and teams, it's been a great opportunity, and there's still so much to do, a lot of work to get done. And what keeps me energized about it is that, and kind of going back to my phrase of shoppers wildly misunderstood, its role and its importance within the organization is that you can spend all the money in the world on creating this amazing innovative product. You can spend all the money in the world, making a Super Bowl spot, right? And just other examples could follow. But if it's not on the shelf, if shoppers can't buy it, they can't find it, if it's not available, then we've got a problem, right? Shoppers still have to buy the product. And so once that is unlocked within the organization about how can we market to the people with the wallet, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yep, completely agree. Makes perfect sense. And I have to imagine too, like, you came in 19, so you didn't even have, like, that much time, I feel like, from a change perspective until COVID hit. So
No.
Kudos to you for trying to enact change when a time when I think change was kind of forced on all of us, both personally and professionally. Think about how different 2020 was than pretty much every other year that we've all experienced. And you're coming in trying to, like, make changes here globally when this is happening, changing globally anyways. So
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, 2020 was like super unique for everybody. I imagine, and I'm positive that a huge part of your Kellogg's portfolio did awesomely. I know that my personal Cheez-It consumption increased a good amount. Can you just
So
speak a little bit? Yeah, speak a little bit more about like how you guys plan to leverage that for the future.
yeah, so our CEO said something the other day. He said, we just went through the largest live sampling event that we will ever be in.
So true. So true.
Yeah, and what's exciting about that is that during COVID, especially in the early days, last March, April, May, when a lot of the pantry stacking and basket building behavior was going on. I mean, I don't know about you, but I went to the grocery store and spent, well, I'm not going to say several $100s on just me, because we were just in that loading standpoint. We were fearful. We didn't know what to expect. And what we found from a sentiment standpoint is that consumers and shoppers were looking for brands and products that were familiar to them, and products that they knew would provide what they needed from a satiation standpoint, as well as fulfilling the need of being at home throughout every meal of the day and every snack of the day. And so we take a lot of pride that we were able to be a brand, a collection of brands, of course, with our master brand of Kellogg. We take a lot of pride that we were able to be there with families across the world, as we all had to hunker down and go through that together. Of course, with that, does bring a lot of growth, that was unexpected. And when you think about comping that and what our priorities are for this year, the three lessons and the priorities that we had coming out of it were, and lessons learned, number one was access to food. We all experience supply shortages. One pack of toilet paper per person was unheard of. We've never experienced that before.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, everything from manufacturers could not produce enough product to meet the demand. And so we learned a lot from a supply chain standpoint, and we learned a lot in how we best partner with our retailers from a supply and demand standpoint, so that we perhaps are prepared if God forbid something like that happened again.
Yeah.
But the motto really during that time was get the food to the people. It was all hands on deck. As many other companies did, advertising and any promotion efforts came to a halt, and it was roll up your sleeves, get the food to the people, do what we can to make sure that our shoppers and consumers are fed.
Yeah, totally agree. I can quickly, sorry to interrupt you, but as far as the supply chain aspect of everything, like I have like vivid memories from like early 2020 when like shortly after it was officially announced as being a pandemic. I don't think I'll ever forget like the first time I went out to, after that announcement, I went out to a brick and mortar grocery store here in Minneapolis just to go down the center aisle and grab some things that have, that are, to your point, that were like a little bit familiar to me, or at least I tried to find things that were familiar to me, but that was immediately, that was a challenge. But I'll never forget going down the prepared foods aisles at the store that's local to me, and like all I saw was empty shelves like for like 60 straight feet. And I was like, oh man, I thought I was getting here. I came like straight from a lunch meeting to the store like after it was announced, and I was like, oh my gosh, like everything is already completely sold out that has like anything that's not like a fresh or a dairy product. I was like, oh man, this might be like, I had like a little heart skipped a beat at that moment of my life. And I was like, oh man, since then it's like consumer behavior for me, or just like the mental mindset of all of that like changed. And I know that's like a topic of what we're talking about today, but that's just like an interesting feeling that like as a consumer, at least in the United States of America where I've been, like I've never had that feeling. Was like a full
there's not product,
no selection, no food. Like that was before the bathroom tissue situation. That was just like a food for next week situation for me. Right. I was normally, before COVID, I was on the go. So I had like next to nothing in my condo because I'm always gone. So like when I finally come home and then I
Same,
go to the store to shop and there's nothing there, that like
same.
exponentially raises the concern for me. So I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that feeling. So I think from a consumer perspective, hopefully for the industry and for the food manufacturers across the country, hopefully this is a lesson that we can all kind of, for consumers and for manufacturers, right? We can all kind of like understand like, hey, this type of thing can happen and we can guard against some of those things for all of us in the future. That's just a feeling I'll honestly never forget. So
Yeah, same here. And I think because of what we experienced, right, was the obvious rise of e-commerce behavior. Kellogg had already, had in place the right e-commerce capability and strategy and structure in place that we had invested in several years ago, both from a financial standpoint and a talent standpoint. So when that hit, we were one of the few who were ready to go. Even though there was still so much learning and optimization that happened, I can say that we had invested early. We were ready to stand up to what was needed. Um, you know, from an e-com standpoint, our sales doubled in 2020, and we sales netted at $1.1 billion, which was a triple increase from year ago, and it moved our overall our overall business percentage of e-com to about 10% of overall sales. We were already at about 8, and we've now arrived in the double digits. Obviously, brick and mortar is still extremely important right now. That's 90% of our business. Yep. But the momentum that we saw through COVID in relation to e-commerce is definitely not slowing down. And it's something that we're excited to see grow and move forward.
Yep, for sure. And I'll even say for me, for my personal 2020 e-com experience, I definitely remember too, like when I would do after the experience going in store, you come back and you come down and try to check to see where you can order online. I remember trying to do, I was Amazon Prime subscriber for some things. So I went to Amazon and tried to set up my delivery for groceries for the week. But like that was back when a time when you couldn't even basically find like a delivery time or a date. And it was tough to know when you're shopping online, like they show you the consumer interfaces, you see the food online, but then you don't know if it's going to actually be in stock until you get to the checkout. But then you can't physically check out because there's not a delivery time available yet. So like, I remember going through all of that when I was trying to, and I remember keep going back to I had my work computer and then my personal one. And my personal one was always like loaded to Amazon because I'd have to go back and like hit the refresh button so many times that there'd be an open window for me to be able to.
What's interesting is that in Europe, a lot of the Omni players, you select your time first.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think is something that we should have here because I've experienced the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'll never forget, like my refresh button was like the letters weren't even visible anymore after I got done with my first couple trips. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's awesome to see. I know e-com for us too, as a company, e-com has been a huge, e-com shopping, and I think there's going to be a huge percentage of consumers that adopt that long term. And I can even tell you that when, like probably like in April or May, I remember having a quick little online tutorial with my mom who was trying to learn how to get groceries delivered to her. So I remember setting her up and walking her through piece by piece to get her set up with, I think it was Instacart at the time, as far as like what she was trying to sign up for, so she could do multiple outlets. She'll still definitely want to get some time to go back out to the stores, but now that you have that account, you have the familiarity, you've kind of come over that hurdle for the change hurdle. You know what I mean? We kind of talked about it really, but like once you kind of get yourself in the framework of, okay, maybe certain categories and products I can just click online and have them sent to my house. I might want to go pick out certain things, but I think that might even change. And my parents are in their mid 70s. So for them to kind of come into the e-com space at this stage in their life could be like an interesting little change, I think, for all of our clients and consumers in the future as to like which ones kind of hang on with e-com and which ones maybe go back to a little bit more of the brick and mortar as we move into the future.
Yeah, I think from what we saw with Kellogg, and by the way, Instacart, there was a data point that they shared that 40% of their shoppers during the COVID timeframe, which is the majority of 2020,
Yep.
40% were new users, which I thought was very interesting.
Yep.
Um, when we looked at our data from an e-com standpoint last year, what's very interesting is that 79% of sales were for omni players. And what I mean by omni players are retailers that have both brick and mortar and e-com coverage. So thinking about Walmart, Tesco, Kroger, and not only just drive up or click and collect, but they also have ship to home e-commerce capabilities as well. So it still shows me as as creating a point of view about shopper behavior that shoppers are just shopping everywhere. It's not an either or, it's an and. They're shopping here and here. They're shopping on social channels. They're just shopping everywhere. And so as you're building your channel strategy and you're building your media plan, it's you just need to be very careful about not niching it into one specific retail channel, because
Yep.
at least for us, 79% of our sales were from omni customers. And a lot of people find that interesting because they're like, I'm surprised it's not Amazon. I'm surprised it's not Pure Play.
Yeah.
For food and beverage, it just isn't that. And a lot of that has to do with the margin pressures that exist within a pure play model. If you go shopping on Amazon, if it's not Amazon Fresh, if it's just Amazon in general, you typically have to buy more in bulk, right? You want one box of Pop-Tarts, but you have to buy a 4-pack. And that fulfills a different shopper need. And that's largely because of the margin pressures and demands.
Yep. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know a huge amount of your products did awesome in 2020, but flip side of that question, I guess, or flip side of that equation would be, as we move into 2021, do you think you have some, as the kind of we'll call it the return to normalcy, or the direction of return to normalcy happens for all of us? What types of stuff do you have set up where you think maybe 21 could even be better for a few products or brands versus, I know, the unique, huge increases for 2020?
Yeah, a lot of our growth and sustained sales in 2020 were with our cereal and snacking brands, and snacking like Cheez-It, Pringles, etc.
Yeah.
I think there's a great opportunity for our portable wholesome snacks category in 2021, because a lot of those brands like RX Bar, Pop-Tart, Rice Krispie Treat, Nutri-Grain, those are brands that are consumed on the go, whether they're packed in a lunchbox, whether they are a snack that you bring to work or to the gym. So a lot of those brands and products, I think there's a great opportunity to see those really shine in 2021, just due to consumer habits becoming hopefully more back to normal.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I even think about like my personal travel routine is basically involves before pandemic, it involved like Uber to Delta to Marriott to Starbucks, and then like kind of like on the go, you find like a Nutri-Grain bar would be at like in an airport, or you
Yep.
jump into a convenience store that's really close to your hotel, or the drug chain is obviously like very high number of locations, and convenience for me is like when you're on the go from meeting to meeting or going from A to B to C, convenience, quote unquote, and on the go is the name of the game. So for me, that would be like the first thing I would think about for my return to my normal work routine. I would say the RX Bar and Nutri-Grain would pop off the radar for me personally. So it makes
Definitely. Yeah. And I think as we prepped for 2021, and as we're in it right now, the number one question that we all had and the number one priority was, how do we maintain this, right? We saw
Right.
explosive growth. Um, what are the strategies in place to be able to maintain and comp this in 2021? And I think that, the things that continue to be true, right? Building brand love. We are investing very heavily into our brands from a above the line advertising and consumer messaging standpoint, but also driving more of that share of wallet and doing specific things like understanding receipt data and understanding what people are shopping for so that we can serve up a right offer or promotion when they're shopping for different products or and shopping at different places.
Mhm.
Getting very granular like that, understanding their shopper behaviors, and then also really over investing in ratings and reviews. This is a key
Yep.
component to winning on the digital shelf. If you think about going into a retail store, that is a shelf that's run by very few people, right?
Yeah.
You've got a buyer, the retailer, they choose what goes on the shelf and what you see. It's completely different for the digital shelf. Digital shelf is owned by the many. It's people buying the products, rating the products, and obviously we know that the higher the rating, the more the rating, the higher up you are in the search results, and on the category pages. So it's a huge emphasis, to maintain, to just be there on the shelf when you type in snacks, when you type in chips, making sure that Pringles shows up, which is a bit of a no-brainer, um, but it's got to be done. So if I'm asked about specific tactics that we might be doing from a media standpoint, I'd say really it's just making sure that our products are showing up when shoppers want them.
Yep.
Um, to, has been a strong plan so far.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. I know when I'm online shopping, the things that I largely look at would be like the ratings and the reviews of like what do other people think of whatever the product may be, and then obviously along with price a little bit as far as figuring out what you're paying for like the quality. So that kind of like that comparison obviously would obviously ring true. Actually, we have a question that came in from the
Okay.
our first one came in. So I was trying to keep an eye on both like the questions, your questions, and then the clock. And I think I'm going a little cross-eyed here, but you let me know if I look funny. Any new product launches or campaign launches they can look out for in the next few months that would be interesting to chat through with the group.
A lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline. Not at liberty to share yet. What was exciting in North America here in January was our relaunch of Pringles and the new Viz ID. Mr. P got a haircut and looks a little bit different. So that is an exciting project across the globe, that we are um, elevating the Pringles brand and relaunching it from a Viz ID and messaging standpoint. Again, you're already seeing that on shelf in store.
Yep.
Had Super Bowl commercial, but that is something that I'm heavily vested in to roll out globally. But lots of other things in the hopper, but can't quite
Yep.
say.
Completely understand. I thought that might be the case for anything specific to a brand or a launch that's not maybe public yet. But kind of along the same vein, like when you think about the future of consumer engagement, shopper marketing, shopper engagement, like what do you think, just bigger picture from a Kellogg's perspective? Where do you see things going, whether it's from a channel perspective or e-com or even anything outside of I know you have a look into so many different geographies, like anything that you would say from a like future perspective, what would be kind of jumping out for you for trends or things you're excited about that gets you going?
Yeah, I think you could break it up into several things. From a channel perspective, definitely e-com being on a sharp trajectory to keep increasing. And what's been very exciting is to see even countries like Russia and Mexico begin adopting more e-com. versus like obviously a US, Korea, the UK are very advanced in e-com. So I think as more markets come on board with adoption and utilization and execution of e-commerce, that's just going to continue to be big. Data and technology, I mean, that's like a whole nother Brand Innovators week.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a key pillar of importance right now at Kellogg, leveraging our first party data, and delivering the right data-driven marketing funnel approach to again drive brand love with our consumers and share of wallet with our shoppers. And then of course, just from a sustainability standpoint, in the UK, we partnered with Tesco a couple of months ago to test a recyclable Pringles paper can, and that was
Cool.
a really exciting test. Yeah, you can Google it and find out more about it, but being at the forefront of sustainability is something that not only consumers and shoppers are seeking, but it's what our retailers are also asking of us. So if you think about a macro level, you've got channel focus, you've got brand building focus, data, sustainability, and then also scalability across our innovation pipeline, and across all different capabilities. The more that we're able to scale, the better we'll be.
Cool. I know we're coming up here on time, but we actually got one last question, or should we might have time to squeeze in a quick answer. I know Pearl just jumped on. So here's the question: with e-com exploding, are you looking to get more direct to consumer or staying with the omni-channel partners?
We definitely have a direct to consumer strategy in play. Recently just launched a product over in Europe called Imwell. You can check it out. It's imwell.com. And definite plans on advancing the D2C strategy moving forward. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I think we're pretty much here at time. There's so many lessons learned, I feel like, from a consumer engagement perspective in 2020. And it's been really cool to chat and just talk through all the differences and all the changes and all the different lenses that you have as it relates to both the consumer lens and of course the Kellogg's lens across the globe. So really appreciate the conversation and all the insight. Hopefully everybody else feels the same. Pearl, how's it going?
Thank you too.
That was really fun. I love a lot of the brands that you oversee, Brittney. I was just looking up Pringles haircut, and I totally got pictures that I did not think that I would see. So you know how people like all the brand love of people getting tattoos of their brands? Well, some people get his mustache haircut in their head.
Oh, yeah.
It was a little different.
Not something I'll be doing, but we thank them.
You're not loyal enough.
Yeah, I must not be.
I'd draw the line somewhere, I suppose.
That's so funny. Thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, we'll have you back again soon, I assume. Thanks so much for joining us today, Brittney and Casey.
Thanks.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you hosting us.
Yeah. Happy Thursday.
All. Yep. Bye-bye.
So thanks to Brittney and Casey for closing out today's programming. And thank you so much for everyone else for joining us today. It was a great day of leaders, and we are excited for all of our upcoming days on this topic. We hope you will join Brand Innovators on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for a day on C-suite and marketing leadership. We will be joined by C-suite executives from United Health Group, Warner Brands, Del Taco, American Eagle Outfitters, Warner Brothers, and more. Thank you for joining, and we hope to see you again soon.